Why China may overtake the US as the world's leading superpower? There is no doubt that the United States has been the world's superpower for many years. But there are signs that China may be overtaking the US soon. Let's get started. Please like, subscribe and turn on the notification button to keep supporting our channel. 1. Why China may overtake the US as the world's leading superpower. Since the end of World War II, the United States has been the world's leading superpower. But that era may soon come to an end. China is rapidly closing the gap with the US in terms of economic, military, and technological might. And some experts believe China could overtake the US as the world's leading superpower within the next few decades. There are several reasons why China may soon surpass the US as the world's leading superpower. First, China's economy is growing at a much faster rate than the US economy. In fact, China's economy is now nearly twice the size of the US economy. And if current trends continue, China's economy will be larger than the US economy by 2030. Second, China is rapidly modernizing its military. China is now the world's second largest military spender, behind only the United States. And China is working to develop sophisticated new weapon systems, including aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, and cyber warfare capabilities. Third, China is making significant investments in science and technology. China now has more scientists and engineers than any other country in the world. And China is pouring billions of dollars into research and development, with a focus on artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other cutting-edge technologies. Fourth, China has a much larger population than the United States. China has over 1.4 billion people, while the United States has just over 327 million. This gives China a much larger potential labor force and consumer market. Finally, China is investing heavily in infrastructure. China's Belt and Road Initiative is the largest infrastructure project in history. When complete, it will span over 60 countries and connect more than 4.5 billion people. There's no question that China is a rapidly rising superpower. And if current trends continue, China is on track to overtake the United States as the world's leading superpower in the coming decades. 2. How China's economy is growing at an unprecedented rate. Since China began to open up and reform its economy in 1978, GDP growth has averaged almost 10% a year, and more than 850 million people have been lifted out of poverty. Today, China is an upper-middle income country and the world's second largest economy. But its per capita income is still only about a quarter of that of high-income countries, and about 373 million Chinese are living below the upper-middle income poverty line of $5.50 a day. China also lags in labor productivity and human capital. Income inequality has improved over the last decade but remains relatively high. China's high growth based on resource-intensive manufacturing, exports, and low-paid labor has largely reached its limits and has led to economic, social, and environmental imbalances. Reducing these imbalances requires shifts in the structure of the economy from low-end manufacturing to higher-end manufacturing and services, and from investment to consumption. Over the past few years, growth has moderated in the face of structural constraints, including declining labor force growth, diminishing returns to investment, and slowing productivity. The challenge going forward is to find new drivers of growth while addressing the social and environmental legacies of China's previous development path. China's 13th Five-Year Plan, announced in March 2016, takes an important step in this direction by setting the goals of doubling 2010 GDP and per capita income by 2020. While completing the building of a moderately prosperous society, eliminating poverty is crucial to achieving this goal. China has achieved a lot in poverty reduction since 1978. But considerable challenges remain, especially in rural areas. Of the remaining poor, most live in rural areas and work in agriculture. They are dispersed among China's many poor counties, often in hard-to-reach locations. They also face a number of constraints, including low education levels, lack of access to markets and public services, and limited productive assets. Over the past few years, the government has introduced a number of initiatives to address these challenges. For example, the government is piloting a program that provides not only cash transfers but also other forms of support, such as training, to help people find jobs and start businesses. The program is aimed at reducing poverty by 50% by 2020. The government has also increased its investment in rural infrastructure, including roads, electrification, and water and sanitation. And it has expanded access to credit, social insurance, and health care. All of these initiatives are important and will help reduce poverty. But more needs to be done to reach the government's goal of eliminating poverty by 2020. There are a number of areas where the government could do more. For example, it could do more to improve access to markets and public services, especially in poor and hard-to-reach areas. It could also do more to increase agricultural productivity, including by investing in irrigation and rural infrastructure. The government has also set a goal of increasing the number of people with high incomes to 400 million by 2020. This is an ambitious goal, but it is achievable if the government pursues the right policies. To meet this goal, the government needs to continue to shift the structure of the economy from low-end manufacturing to higher-end manufacturing and services. It also needs to promote more efficient allocation of resources, including through reforms to state-owned enterprises and the financial sector. The government has made progress on these fronts, but more needs to be done. For example, the state-owned enterprises reform program has been slow to progress, and more needs to be done to promote competition and level the playing field for private firms. China also needs to do more to increase consumption. This will require continued progress in reducing the savings rate and boosting wages, especially for low-income households. The government has taken some steps in this direction, including through the recent increase in the minimum wage. But more needs to be done to increase wages for the large number of migrant workers who have left their rural homes to find work in urban areas. China also needs to do more to improve the quality of its growth. This will require moving up the value chain, promoting innovation, and improving the environment. The government has set some ambitious goals in these areas, including doubling the share of renewable energy in the total energy mix by 2030. But more needs to be done to make progress on these fronts. In summary, China has made incredible progress in reducing poverty and promoting economic growth. But significant challenges remain, and the government needs to do more to address them. 3. The implications of China's rise for the US and the world. The 21st century is often referred to as the Asian century, in recognition of the growing economic and political clout of the region. At the forefront of this rise is China, which has emerged as a global power in recent years. The US has been the dominant superpower for much of the past century, but China's rise is challenging that supremacy. As the two countries compete for influence on the world stage, There are a number of implications for the US and the world. 1. The US is no longer the sole superpower. For much of the past century, the US has been the dominant superpower. But China's rise means that the US is now sharing the stage with another global power. This has implications for the US ability to dictate the terms of international agreements and to get its own way on the world stage. 2. China is an increasingly important economic partner. As China's economy has grown, it has become an increasingly important trading partner for the US. This is evident in the burgeoning trade deficit that the US has with China. The US relies on China for a number of critical imports, including electronics and rare earth metals. 3. The US needs to adapt to a more multipolar world. The rise of China and other countries means that the US can no longer dictate the terms of the global economic and political order. The US needs to adapt to a more multipolar world, where it will have to share power with other countries. 4. The US needs to find a way to cooperate with China. The US and China are natural rivals, but they also need to find ways to cooperate. This is evident in the ongoing negotiations over the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, which is a trade agreement between the US and 11 other countries. China is not part of the TPP, but the agreement could set the terms of trade in the Asia-Pacific region for years to come. 5. The world is becoming more unstable. As the US and China compete for influence, the world is becoming more unstable. This is evident in the growing tensions in the South China Sea, where China is asserting its territorial claims. The US has responded by sending military ships and planes to the region, in a show of force. The US and China are two of the most powerful countries in the world, and their rivalry is having implications for the rest of the world. As the two countries compete for influence, the world is becoming more unstable. 4. What the US can do to maintain its position in the face of China's challenge. There's no doubt that China is becoming an increasingly powerful force on the global stage. But the United States still has a lot of cards to play in order to maintain its position as the world's leading superpower. Here are some things the US can do to stay ahead of China. 1. Invest in research and development. One of the best ways for the US to maintain its position in the face of China's challenge is to invest in research and development. This will help the US to develop new technologies and products that can stay ahead of China's counterfeit versions. 2. Improve educational outcomes. Another way for the US to keep its edge is to improve educational outcomes. This means preparing students for the jobs of the future and ensuring they have the skills needed to compete in a global economy. 3. Increase trade and investment with China. Rather than view China as a threat, the US should increase trade and investment with the country. This will help to boost the US economy and create jobs. 4. Work with allies. The US should continue to work with its allies around the world. This will help to counterbalance China's growing influence and maintain the US position as the preeminent superpower. 5. Be open to engagement with China. The US should be open to engagement with China, whether it's through trade, investment, or other areas. This will help to build trust and understanding between the two countries. By taking these steps, the US can maintain its position as the world's leading superpower in the face of China's challenge. 5. How China is changing the global balance of power. Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has been the dominant global superpower. But that is changing. China is on the rise, and its rapidly growing economy is starting to challenge the US both politically and economically. The rise of China is already having a major impact on the global balance of power. As China becomes more powerful, it is starting to challenge its dominance in Asia and is becoming more assertive on the world stage. This is causing consternation in Washington and is leading to a new era of great power competition between the US and China. The economic rise of China is the most important factor driving the country's growing power. China is now the world's largest economy, and its economic growth has been astonishing. Over the last few decades, China has transformed itself from a poor, agrarian country into a global economic powerhouse. This economic growth has allowed China to rapidly modernize its military and develop new technologies. China is now a major player in the global arms market and is investing heavily in cutting-edge weapons systems. China is using its growing power to assert itself in Asia and challenge its dominance in the region. This is leading to tension and conflict between the US and China, and the two countries are now engaged in a new arms race. The US is still the dominant military power in the world, but China is closing the gap. The Chinese military is larger and better funded than ever before, and it is rapidly modernizing. China is now a major player in the global arms market and is investing heavily in cutting-edge weapons systems. If current trends continue, China will eventually overtake the US as the world's superpower. This would be a major shift in the global balance of power, and it would have far-reaching consequences for the US and the world. 6. The implications of China's rise for international relations. As China's economy continues to grow, its influence on the international stage is also increasing. In recent years, China has become more active in international affairs, and its rise has been accompanied by a growing assertiveness in its foreign policy. While China's rise is generally seen as a positive development, it is also creating some challenges for the international community. In particular, there is a risk that China's economic and military power could eventually be used to undermine the existing international order. In the past, China has generally been a relatively passive player in international affairs. However, in recent years it has become more assertive, and this is likely to continue as its power and influence continue to grow. One of the most significant aspects of China's rise is its growing economic power. China is now the world's second largest economy, and its economic growth is helping to drive global growth. However, China's economic power is also creating some challenges. For example, China's large trade surplus with the US is a source of tension between the two countries. There is also concern that China could use its economic clout to gain advantages in other areas, such as through its investment in infrastructure projects in Africa and Asia. Another key aspect of China's rise is its growing military power. China is now the world's second largest military spender, and it is continuing to modernize its armed forces. This is leading to concerns about China's strategic intentions, particularly in relation to Taiwan and the South China Sea. China's rise is also having an impact on global governance. In recent years, China has been increasingly active in international institutions such as the United Nations, and it is now a permanent member of the UN Security Council. As China's influence continues to grow, there is a risk that it could use its power to undermine the existing international order. For example, China could choose to veto on Security Council resolutions that are contrary to its interests. There is also a risk that China could seek to establish alternative international institutions that are more favorable to its interests. For example, China has been a key driver behind the establishment of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which some Western countries have seen as a challenge to the existing World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Overall, China's rise is a positive development for the world. However, it is important to manage the challenges that come with it. 7. What the world can expect from a China-dominated world order. For many years, China has been on the rise economically, militarily, and diplomatically. Recently, however, there has been an acceleration in China's comprehensive national power, which has led many to believe that China is destined to dominate the world in the 21st century. There are a number of factors that contribute to China's increasing dominance. Firstly, China has the world's largest population, which gives it a large potential market for goods and services. Secondly, China's economy is rapidly growing, and is expected to overtake the United States as the world's largest economy within the next few years. Thirdly, China has been investing heavily in military capabilities, and is now a major player on the global stage. So, what can the world expect from a China-dominated world order? Firstly, there is likely to be more competition for resources. China is already the world's largest consumer of energy, and its rapidly growing economy is only going to require more resources in the future. This is likely to lead to increased competition for energy and other natural resources, which could lead to tension and conflict between China and other nations. Secondly, the world can expect greater economic integration with China. As China's economy continues to grow, it is increasingly seeking to engage with the global economy. This is likely to lead to more investment from China and other countries, and more trade between China and the rest of the world. Thirdly, the world can expect increased political and military activity from China. As China continues to grow in power, it is likely to become more assertive on the global stage. This could lead to more involvement in regional disputes, and a more active role in international organizations such as the United Nations. Overall, the world can expect increased competition, economic integration, and political activity from a China-dominated world order. Don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification button so that you won't miss any updates.